I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Ruka Kwadash, double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule great millstone wow, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure unto the end. Shalom wa babal. So this is Jeremiah 45, a message for Baruch, which he was a scribe for Jeremiah, because Jeremiah was imprisoned by the Israelites for prophesying of the captivity coming upon them by the Assyrian Babylonian kingdom, because Israel, starting with the northern kingdom and then the southern kingdom that went into slavery later, was into idolatry. So the Lord was going to punish them by bringing them into captivity. First the northern kingdom, then years later the southern kingdom. All right. So it says, I'm going to read it in the NLT. It says, Jeremiah 45 verse 1, the prophet Jeremiah gave a message to Baruch, son of Neriah, in the fourth year of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, after Baruch had written down everything Jeremiah had dictated to him, he said, "This is what Yahweh, the power of Israel, says to you, Baruch. You have said, I am overwhelmed with trouble. Haven't I had enough pain already? And now Yahweh has added more. I am worn out and sighing and can find no rest." So sometimes brothers may feel like Baruch, where you feel overwhelmed and troubled, right? And you feel like you've received enough pain, right? Being in this truth, because you lose jobs, you lose relationships, you lose children, right? Which we all got to go through these pains, these growing pains. And now Yahweh has added more, which we're going to go through a great tribulation when they make that implantable microchip mandatory for buying and selling in this generation, which is the mark of the beast. I am worn out from sighing and can find no rest, which this is not our rest here in Babylon the Great, America. But Baruch was going through it because the Lord allowed the heathen to take the Israelites, starting with the northern kingdom, then the southern kingdom, into slavery. All right. And even the Israelites that try to escape and go into Egypt, the Lord brought Nebuchadnezzar in there to capture him and put him to death. And the Lord only saved a remnant. All right. It says in verse 4, Baruch, this is what Yahweh says, I will destroy this nation that I built, which are the Israelites. I will uproot what I planted, which he put the Israelites in Jerusalem, right? When you read about Moses and Joshua, right? And then after him, King David and Solomon, right? So he was uprooting them through the heathen as a rod of anger. It says, are you seeking great things for yourself? Don't do it. So pretty much in the same spirit, in America, right, we're about to see a great time of trouble for the Israelites, right? It's called Jacob's trouble, which we're already in the beginning of it, all right? But it's going to go into a time of great tribulation when they make that implantable microchip mandatory for buying and selling. So don't seek what they call the American dream. All right. So it's called the American dream, which this is dead. It says the American dream as, quote, the ideal that every citizen of the United States should have an equal opportunity to achieve success and prosperity through hard work, determination, and initiative. All right, which the American dream is dead. All right, you're going into war, famines, death, and destruction. All right. Now I put in explain the American dream is dead. It says arguments for why the American dream is dead: declining upward mobility. Upward mobility has slowed considerably. So your ability to rise up in the ranks, whether it's through years of work or the ability to make fast cash, research shows that while 90% of the children born in the 1940s earned more than their parents, that figure has fallen to only about 50% for those born in 1980s. A 2014 Economic Policy Institute analysis found that fewer people in the lower and middle classes are climbing the economic ladder, which is even worse now in 2025, a decade later, right? It says soaring costs and stagnant wages is what they're blaming, right? But it's all done by the elite and their executive orders that they pass through their politicians. All right. Wealth and income inequality, right? It says the gap between the wealthiest Americans and everyone else has widened significantly. The benefits of economic growth have primarily been concentrated at the top, which the elite are controlling it. That's why, like Jay-Z, though he offered $5.8 billion to build a casino, they rejected it because he's being stopped from prospering. All right. It says this this inequality means that many working class Americans struggle to afford essentials like healthcare and housing in good school districts. All right. Racial and social inequality, which this word inequality, I will copy it and I'll put it up on my next phone and I'll just read out to you so I don't have to lose this page. The definition, it says inequality refers to a lack of equal treatment, opportunity, or distribution of resources such as wealth or income, and can manifest in social, economic, and political spheres. All right, which is happening more and more, especially now in the year 2025, the year that we hope for judgment because of the oppression of the Israelites. And who is oppressing us? The so-called white race, all right, which the other nations are confederate with them against us, all right. It says, historically, the American dream has been more accessible to white Americans. People of color and other marginalized groups have been systematically denied opportunities for home ownership while paying jobs and education. Now let's see systematically denied. What does that mean? It says systematically denied refers to denying something to a person or group as a pattern of behavior embedded within a system, which America is a wicked system under the so-called white race, which are the red devil, Esau, Edom, the Bible speaks of. It says organization or society. This denial is accidental, right? Because they're actually they're drawing up plans that have been in place for generations, but they're bringing them out in this last generation to cause Jacob trouble, all right? It says, let's see, its results from policies, which are their executive orders, practices, and structures that perpetrate disadvantage, often for people of color, leading to significant racial disparities in areas like housing, employment, and economic opportunity. See? So there's no room for us to succeed here. Just like it was for Baruch in his time. The Lord's bringing judgment, right? Which he's going to allow the devil to come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time. All right. And this ain't no place to try to get what they call successful here. There's no success for us. All right. They're signing executive orders that go against Jake, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian. So I put executive orders that have been passed that target Negro, Latino. Forgive me, I didn't do the Google did. Target Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian people. It says in the AI overview, throughout U.S. history, some executive orders have had a discriminatory impact on specific racial and ethnic groups despite being written in neutral terms, because the serpent, the so-called white race, they're cunning, all right? They're a cunning devil. Meanwhile, modern presidents have signed executive orders to either advance or undo policies aimed at addressing systematic inequality. It says historical executive orders with discriminatory impact. Executive Order 9066, which was done in 1942. The civil rights, which were done in the 60s, are now being torn apart by Donald J. Trump, the king of Babylon. All right. Here we go. For this, I wanted to get for the present time what's happening. It says executive orders reversing racial equity policies. So like civil rights, right? We're losing civil rights. Your right to be treated fair at a job. They had to write these laws in place to give us the rights to operate and be treated fairly in the job, which they still never did. All right, which if if you're honest, you're not treated fairly, right? If you defend yourself against a so-called white man, you'll go to prison. You know, I just saw a Jake that got out of prison for 20 years. He did 20 years, and it was because a so-called white woman took his phone and he ripped it out of her hand, and she said he robbed her, and they gave him 20 years for that, and he just got out. And he was explaining in the video how he had to kill people in prison and fights to survive. Or the Native American Indian that they just released from prison, which they falsely accused of murdering natives on Alcatraz Island when they gave it as a Indian reservation. And they blamed him for murders, which he just did decades and decades of prison. He's 81 years old, and he has nothing, not even his vision. He don't even have freedom. He said he's still in prison in the house because when they released him, they put him on home arrest. So even though he did it was like 50 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, when he gets out, he's still being in prison because he can't leave his house without written permission. See? So the so-called white race, they've had made it impossible for us to succeed here. Now, you might get a couple Jake that go to a higher level, right? Like in Hollywood or in sports or in music or in politics or in business. But that's just to put the carrot in front of your nose, which a lot of Jake are distracted. They think they could prosper here. That's why they're in college. That's why they're brown nosing the Edomite's ass, right? Even right now, though he's signing all these executive orders to try to remove you or put you to death, right? Or to break up your family, to cause you harm, and you're still over there begging this so-called white man for a fucking job, all right? It says, recently executive orders, particularly from the Trump administration, have aimed to dismantle or reverse policies associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, affecting programs initially created to benefit minority groups. So they're in war with Jake, and Jake don't even know it, right? Jake's still going to work. Jake's still paying his bills. Jake is a homeborn slave. The so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian are homeborn slaves. I always recommend that movie Glory so you can understand. When Jake went from slavery, having nothing, and they gave him a uniform and a job, Jake thought they had everything. And then now they had civil rights from the 60s where they were able to have a house, to integrate into the schools of the so called white race, drink from the same fountains of water. They thought they were moving on up, you know. But now, under Trump, especially more now, it was done, like I read earlier, by all these different presidents, right? They signed executive orders to put pretty much trip us up in our race in economics or education, right? They now are openly to Trump cutting civil rights. So you're not playing. You never had a fair chance, but now you're pretty much targeted. There's no laws in Esau's books to protect you. That's why they can run up on you, slap you, punch your wife in the mouth, put you on the ground, kill you if they want, murder you, I should say. Take your kids, give them to social services, and they ain't got to tell you nothing. They don't got to tell you their name, their badge. They don't even got to show you their face, right? And you got to submit to them. And now Jake's hanging from trees, right? Because they're removing the laws that actually at one time supposedly protected us. It says Executive Order 1417.3, which this is under Trump. On January 21st, 2025, President Donald Trump, the King of Babylon, rescinded Executive Order 1124.6, effectively ending affirmative action requirements for federal contractors based on race and sex, ending racial and wasteful government DEI programs, and preferencing, which they quote, this is how Trump said it, that it was wasteful, right? Wasteful spending to have these institutions in their government to protect Jake. This order ended DEI programs within the federal government, directing agencies to remove all references to DEI from procedures and guidance. All right. And I could tell you firsthand that now these Edomites are getting proud under Trump, right? Which I've been having issues with Edomites even in my own area, and I'm trying to deal with it legally, right? Because I don't want to waste time with the consequences of going physical. But there's no rest here. There's no peace. Everywhere I call, they're telling me I can't do nothing for you. The civil rights people said we can't do nothing for you. Why? Because they're removing your rights. Pretty much, they're going to be able to murder you, rape you, rob you right in broad daylight. And most of these people that are doing it are law enforcement. All right, which I just saw a woman. All right, an Israelite woman, which she may not know she's an Israelite. She may. But the point she made, and this is a woman saying this, she said, we're stronger than them. So these people that are, these Jake that are being hanged, most likely they're being arrested first because a Jake would would fight and be able to conquer multiple men of Edomites. The so-called white race is weaker. So the way they're overcoming them, she was explaining that she could only understand it like this, is that someone with authority is arresting them. And then while they're handcuffed, they're being hung. You see, they're being beaten, just like that Jake that was found on the campus just recently hanging. His arms and legs were broken. All right? So this is the time we're in. You're in Jacob's trouble. There's little kids in elementary schools being hanged in the bathroom. All right? So you're in Jacob's trouble because there's no laws on the books anymore to protect you in what they call civil rights. All right? Now I wanted to get one more. All right here. It says actions impacting civil rights. Rollback of this disparate impact. Let me look that up on the other phone. This disparate, essentially different in kind, not allowing comparison. All right. It says impact protections. What is it? A cornerstone of civil rights enforcement since the 1960s, where we had like freedom of speech, which you can see that's under attack. Disparate impact liability holds that policies that have a discriminatory effect on a protected group, regardless of intent, are illegal. All right. It says Trump's actions, an April 2025 executive order declared the elimination of disparate impact liability to the maximum degree possible. Critics say this action guts federal civil rights law by making covert discrimination nearly impossible to prove in areas like housing, education, and employment. And I'm telling you, I'm going through this right now, and there's nothing there. Everywhere you go, they're gonna tell you there's nothing they could do for you, whether it's trying to protect yourself, all right, against violence, or education, or trying to get a job. All right, soon you're gonna see these Edomites showing their horns. And back in the days before civil rights, this is why gangs were invented eventually in the communities, because the so-called white race were attacking the kids at the bus stop and doing foul shit to them. All right. All right. So it says before the civil rights movement, minorities, especially black Americans, faced widespread segregation, which we couldn't go into a restaurant. You couldn't, get water from the same water fountain. All right. It says legal disenfranchisement, economic exploitation, and systematic violence under Jim Crow laws, which denied them basic human dignity and opportunities for advancement. And this is what we're going into, Jim Crow laws. All right. It says they were forced to use separate inferior facilities, were systematically denied the right to vote, which all these things don't even really matter, right? It's okay that you have to use a different bathroom. Fuck them, right? Or vote. The vote don't matter anyway. And face constant threats of physical violence. This is what I'm talking about, where you might be sitting at the bus stop and a bunch of Edomites get out and beat your ass or rape a woman, right? Because there's no consequences for these things. It says, and racial terror, including lynchings. Why do you think lynchings are happening from elementary to college? Bodies being found in the rivers. It says, this oppression was enforced by biased legal system and permitted private and public life, creating profound inequality. Forgive me. These words sometimes tongue tie me. Inequality and limiting access to justice, housing, employment, and public life. Meaning they could do whatever the fuck they want to you, and there ain't no consequence. So just like the Lord was telling Baruch in his time, don't look for success here. All right? Jeremiah 45 verse 4. Baruch, this is what Yahweh says. I will destroy this nation that I built, which the Israelites are here in America, and he's going to destroy America, and 2/3 of the nation of Israel are going to die here because of their unfaithfulness. I will uproot what I planted, which in that time they were in Jerusalem, and the Lord was sending the Israelites into slavery under the other nations. Are you seeking great things for yourself? Don't do it. Don't look for success here in America. Don't look to try to be seen as an equal here. Don't think that you have a chance at prosperity under what you call the American dream. I will bring great disaster upon all these people, but I will give you your life as a reward. Wherever you go, I, Yahweh, had spoken. See, so just as Baruch was spared from the judgment, a remnant in this time will be spared. They're known as the hopeful elect. And in that day, right, which we're in that day, Isaiah 4:1, okay, I'm going to go to the KJV. It says, and in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Which these women, all right, that are of the nation of Israel, that have been ordained to be saved with the elect men, they're going to wake up and know that they need a man. Right now, they think that they don't need a man because they're able to go to a job, go to get an apartment, go get a car. But wait till the violence increases and no man is there to protect them or to guide them. And when they're at the job, they're being abused and other things being done to them. When they're on their way home, they're being pulled over and they're running trains, right? All these horrible things are about to start happening more and more and more. The Lord's going to destroy this place with great violence because of the violence that they've done unto the Israelites, especially to the prophets. All right? So don't try to succeed here. All right? So let's go back to that Jeremiah and let's see. All right, so I went to Jeremiah 45:5, the verse I read, where the Lord told Baruch not to seek for great things for himself, and I cross-referenced it. And in the part of seek them not, it brings us to Matthew 6, verse 25, which is the Lord Yahweh Shai speaking. This is why it's in red letters. All right, and I'm going to just jump down to the point. It says in verse 31, therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewith all shall we be clothed? Because you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store. You're not going to be able to go to work. You're not going to be able to go buy water at the store because it's going to be dangerous. All right. There's going to come a time where they make that implantable microchip mandatory for buying and selling, and it's going to cause a great tribulation for the lack of bread and for great tribulation. All right. It says, for after all these things do the heathen seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. So trust in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, and he's going to take care of us. He's going to feed us. He's going to give us drink. He's going to clothe us. We don't need the so-called white race and their stores. We don't need their money. We don't need their protection. Fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck their whole entire fucking race. And fuck their kingdom too. All right? It says, but seek ye first the kingdom of Yahweh, which is through Yahweh Shai, and on earth it's with his men, the prophets, the hopeful elect, which in their mouth is no deceit, and his righteousness. And all these things shall be added unto you, which he's going to take care of us. It says, take therefore no thought for the morrow, right? Which this is why you would think, oh, if I go to college, I could have something better later, right? If I work my ass off for 40 years, I'll get a retirement check. All that shit is dead, all right? It says, for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself, which is only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. So seek the kingdom while it may be found, and it's with his elect men, which were sighing and crying and prophesying. All right? Repent while you have the chance.